Okay, so we're looking at the Rambam's Hakdama to Perek Chelek, his introduction to Chelek. So we had a Hakdama to Hakdama last week. Very briefly, we just sort of discussed that, or what this is all about. The Rambam's going through concepts of reward and punishment, Yemos HaMashiach, Tigas HaMesim, Olam Haba. He's trying to show these are things which people, first of all, don't have a clear idea about how to pull all these concepts together. And second of all, we're going to see one of his main criticisms is that people view them very much in physical ways. Rather than looking at the spiritual concepts and the spiritual rewards, he has a criticism that people generally focus on them very much as being physical things, as we're going to see. Um, so we started off, we looked at the Mishnah last week, Chelek Olam Haba. So now we're going to go straight into the Rambam this week. So if anyone wants to listen to the session from last week, it's recorded on the WhatsApp group or whatever on the website. So Raisi the Daber Khan the Karim Rabim Be'emuna. So this is going to be this is Rambam's place where he goes through the Ikra Emunah. Actually, at the end of this Hakdama, he goes through. He has the full version of the 13 principles of faith. They're summarized in brief in the Torah, and this is the full version here. Gedolim Nechbarim Adba'it. So there's a very significant, very weighty principles of faith. Haviyadeh ki bale Torah nechleku desem v'tova shetegia l'adam b'asiyas hamitzvos shetzavanu b'ayim Hashem Yisbarach Hadem Hashem B'Shalom. So the bale Torah, who's he referring to here? It's something that generally the people in the believers in the faith of Judaism, there are great divisions, there are great disputes about the nature of the reward and punishment that will come to us when we die or in the future eras and things like that. And the punishment will come to us, the evil will befall us when we go against the Torah. Great differences. According to the differences of their intellects, their understandings. And he says that great errors creep in, and people end up having incorrect ideas about what reward and punishment is within Judaism. Till when you start asking people sort of difficult questions about the nature of reward and punishment, you'll find that it's very rare that someone's got a very clear, lucid idea of what's going to happen, of what Judaism tells us. People end up with great confusion. He's going to go through the different groups of people and the different sorts of things that they tell us. So Kasra Shona. So he's going to go through 5 groups of incorrect approaches to what reward and punishment are in the future era, and then he's going to say what he thinks the correct approach is. So Kasra Shona Savara. So one group considers Kiatova Gan Eden. So they consider what is the reward, what is the great thing that we look towards? It's something called Gan Eden. What is that? What is the great thing that we look forward to? What's the great reward we have? It's an idyllic place where we can just eat and drink a lot without having to work for it. We've got beautiful houses, meshi, silk couches and beds, and rivers of wine and oil, pleasant smells. What is the negative? What is the punishment? What is the greatest fear that we have? The greatest punishment if we go against what the Torah says? Gehinnom. A place of burning fire, so that the bodies are burnt up. And there are very many different forms of torture and punishments, and that is also visited on a person if they go against the Torah. And this group are able to bring proofs that there are various different midrashim and agodos that they can bring proof from. Also words of Nevuah we find in the Divrei Nevi'im. Pshatim Na'osim and taken on their simple meaning. So what stands out about this group? The great reward that we have. What is the greatest thing a person can aspire to? It's it's physicality. It's basically it's Olam Haba, but on steroids. So, well, what's the most thing we can have? It's beautiful houses and eat and drink a lot.
Is this only for Jewish understanding or just
I
general
think so. He
understanding?
said. He says he was talking here about what do you call ballet? What's this call it? What's it called? Balei Torah here. So he's talking about people who are loyal to the Torah, who believe. If you ask them, they'll say we're Orthodox Jews. We believe in the Torah. What do you believe? So many of them will say, well, the biggest thing they can aspire to is a physical reward and punishment. As we talked about last week, we talked about when we sort of looking at what Islam promises and
Right.
threatens with what Judaism does. One of the reasons why Islam's able to get, among other reasons, why they're able to get so many followers to do that well is their promises are things that people can relate to very much. You go and blow yourself up. You get the 72 virgins. If you don't do it, you look at what the Quran says. You've got all their rewards, all their punishments. They're physical things that people can latch onto straight away, and the masses, so to speak, will be very easily motivated by that. Okay?
Now, the Rambam was specifically talking about here, in the world to come, not only from this world.
He's putting the two together. He's just sort of saying
It's a
he's
reward and punishment.
what is the highest form of reward and punishment that we aspire to or we're scared of. That comes up in this Hagdama, but he's going to discuss that as well. So he's saying these are. I assume he's referring to groups of Jews that existed at his time, specific groups he's referring to, or just people he's had conversations with. So yeah, so this first group, um, great food and drink, beautiful houses versus fiery Gehenna. That's group one. Kas Shnia was the second group. Tisba v'tachshov, they think about it and they consider Shatova Hamiyucheles He Yemos Mashiach. So what will they latch onto? There's a wonderful future era called the times of Mashiach. Meheri Galem, it speedily be revealed. He also has man. Yebnei Adam Kulam Malachim. We're all going to turn into some kind of angels. Kulam Chaim Mekayim La'ad. We're all going to live forever. The Yigbu V'Kamosim are going to be suddenly turn into huge beings. The Yirbu V'Yatzmu Ad Shishivu Kala Olam. And we're going to become great and strong until we populate the whole world forever. La Olam. Mashiach, Kafi Machshavtam, Yichel La'ad Beit Hashem Yisparach. He'll live forever with the help of God. He'll also Yomim Toitzi Aretz Begodim Arugim. The whole clothes will grow out of the ground. Lechem Ofu Dvarim Harba Ke'ela. Loaves of bread will grow on the trees. All of these sorts of things which seem impossible to us, these is what will occur. And this is the great thing we look forward to be able to see these great wonders. What do these people consider that the great evil will occur is? Just not being able to live to see these wonders. They can also find Sukkim from Navi and words of the Agadas, which will support this view. The great thing we look forward to is the Yemos HaMashiach. Yaskim Shutam Lavashim Oimrim. Kashleshet, who's the third group? Tachshov. That they will answer its resurrection of the dead. That is the great thing. And what is the great reward? That people will be reunited with all their dead relatives. The families will come back together again. They'll be able to eat and drink, and there'll be no further death and suffering. And again, the great negative punishment is just not being around for that time, not being resurrected. And these people also, they can also bring words of Chazal to support these views. That's the third, and Kasravius, the fourth view now. So this sounds very much more like the Islamic one. It's just bodily pleasures, being able to fulfill all one's tavot, all one's desires in this world. many possessions, many children, orach chaim v'yasaguf, great health, shalom v'bitochon. There'll be a great, powerful king in Israel, and we'll be able to conquer and rule over anyone who's bothering us. And what is the negative that will reach us? When we don't fulfill the Torah. The opposite of all these matters. The Rambam was living in a time where he was sent into Golos, he was kicked out of Spain and sort of traveling through North Africa trying to find a place that he could settle. And that was really, that was the Golos, that was the suffering that they had at that time. And people who push forward this view will, view Raya, all the brachas and the clothes of the Torah, which seem to point towards these things.
It is interesting that in the article they look forward to the time of Mashiach. I know he's discussing what is like the greatest good that we look forward to, but like one of the ikarim of principles faith that he himself wrote is that we always have to look forward to Mashiach. Like doesn't matter what, like we should always anticipate
right.
coming.
And one thing you see that he says each one of these groups can bring some sort of raya, some sort of proof to what they're saying from Mamarei Chazal or from Mikras. Meaning that he said that there's some sort of basis for all of these groups. Just you find all four of these groups say completely different things. You've got four different groups here. That you ask a representative of this group, what is the greatest reward and what is the greatest punishment? And they've given you four completely different answers, and they can all back themselves up from Amarei Chazal. So they've all got some kind of basis here, but it seems like maybe they've all got part of the picture, but not all of it. We'll see what we.
Scripture, the simple meaning of which completely or partially fixes what they're saying, and then with the rest of them, it is the simple understanding of Scripture fixes it. They're saying, already on the first one, they're saying, it doesn't really fit so much, but he has some basis, with the rest of them, he says there's a lot more basis for what they're saying.
I think it's right. He's sort of building up that the further it goes, the more basis there are, right? Because the final one, the fourth group, as you said, is that they bring a Svara Mikra Shabbat Torah and a Brachas Akla.
So it's the middle two, where you like give the same like wording, you use the same wording in the next, it's like the basis. The first one is weaker, the second one is the second one is the third one is stronger, and the fourth one.
The fourth one, that's all the Pashas of Klalos and everything in the Torah. If you fulfill God's will, then you'll be Nasati Gishmechem Ba'aretz. The fifth one, the fourth one, he says this seems to reflect the brachas and klalos in the Torah. That if you fulfill what the Torah says, then you'll be blessed with great abundance, and there's the soil going through your land, and all of this that sort of thing. So it does seem to reflect the brachas and klalos. Kas Chamishis, he just says, is a mixture of all of these. Harbe Machabim in Elu Kulam Kitacheles Hishe by Mashiach, Mikaya Mason, we come to the Gan Eden, Yochisham, Yishtav Yibrim Kameolam. So it's just a mixture of all of these other four. So, yes, we've got Gan Eden, we've got Yemos Mashiach, we've got Tchilas Mason, we've got abundance and then punishment in this world, of Golos in this world and abundance in this world, and then mixtures of all of these. And these are all different concepts that we find dotted around Torah, Nevi'im, and Chazal. And how do we fit all these together? And what is the ultimate reward and punishment that we think of? So that's to me the Rambam's big question. And part of it is going to be how you approach Agada and how you approach reading Nevi'im, because that's going to be a big key to how to unlock these sorts of questions.
Does the Mishnah like to focus, like the Mishnah itself talks about, it starts off by saying who has a Chelek in Olam Haba.
Right, very good. That's what we come back to, because this is his introduction to Perek Chelek, which what is the big thing we look forward to in Gun for Tanaim? What is Olam Haba? Is Olam Haba, is that the same as all these things? Is it different? That's which we're going to come on to now. So all of these things, they sound great, and they've got some kind of source somewhere in Chazal. This wonderful thing, which we talk about, which we introduce Perek Chelek in Olam Haba, the world to come. It's not even considered, not even thought about. People don't even talk about it when it comes to reward and punishment. What do you mean? Oh, I I see. You can carry on. You go, "Eilish ein lein chelek olam haba." So it's. But so we discussed last week that what the Rambam seems to say for Yisrael, once you're a member of Yisrael, you by default you have a Chelek Olam Haba, unless you do something to specifically lose it. A Perek Chelek is where many of these agadas are found, which discuss the nature of reward and punishment against the Mesim, Olam Haba, which is why before the Rambam goes to discuss it, yeah, it's a short Mishnah and there's a lot of Gemara on it. You've got like 10, 15 Gemara with loads of these agadas, which is many of these things which are referenced by these 4 or 5 groups. Chelek means a portion. So, and the Chelek is referring to Olam Haba. So, all of these 4 things we're going to see that they are. Okay, so all of these, so these 4 or 5 groups, they're all trying to set up and understand, explain reward and punishment basically on worldly things. Some of them more worldly than others. Some are agile, but just purely physical tzavos and physical pleasures. Some are more miraculous things that's seen in this world. Whereas the Rambam is saying, well, none of them are actually mentioning Olam Haba, a spiritual. None of them are focusing on the spiritual aspect of it. And this is something which bothers him a lot, and he's going to go into it a little bit. So ma'at timsa b'shum ponim sheyala libo. So people don't even consider and don't even think about it. People don't even think about, well, what is Olam Haba referring to? When we say Olam Haba, is it referring to any of these above things? It's not really part of people, in his time at least, it's not even part of what they're discussing. Is it the ultimate purpose, the ultimate way in which we receive the good? Or is one of these other 4? What is the order? Presumably, all of these different they all have some sort of role. What is the ultimate reward, and what are the stepping stones to get there? How do we put all these things together? He said people don't really deal with this. Instead of dealing with these, what Rambam says, these more important questions of trying to understand the framework and understand what Olam Haba is, he said people get involved in the nitty gritty in what he says are relatively unimportant questions. What are the people, both the masses and those who understand and should know better, what do they get involved with? They say, well, they spend their time discussing how will, when there's a resurrection of the dead, how will the dead come out of their graves? Will it be naked? Will it be clothed? Will they be resurrected in the same clothes they were buried in? Will they be resurrected in a nicer clothing? So people get, instead of stopping, this is something which the Rambam, something which helped me very much when I was learning. I found learning the Rambam gives you a big framework with which to deal with all the issues. And this is very much something which he's doing. He's saying before you get involved in the nitty gritty, which again it's important to know the details. Of course, Judaism has a lot of stuff on details, but first try and understand a framework. Like try and understand the principles of faith, try and understand, and then once you've got the big picture, then start going into all the little bits and pieces. So don't start asking, well, will people be resurrected with their clothes or not, before you understand what is Tikkun Mason, what is Olam Haba, what is Mashiach, how do these things fit together? People ask in the year Shavim Ha'ashra Badal, this is the communist question, will there be equality of wealth, and will everyone earn the same amount, will everyone have the same wealth during the Moshe Mashiach? Will some people be stronger than others or weaker than others? And as we discussed last week, what is the reason for it? Because people, our minds, we are physical beings in a physical world, and therefore we relate very much to physicality. So when we think of a future era, wonderful era, we very much think of, well, what are we like now? We like physicality. Therefore, the thing we can relate to most is physical reward, and the most scary thing is physical punishment. Because we're not spiritual beings, therefore our mind doesn't tend to think of the greatest possible reward being some sort of great spiritual understanding or connection to God. There's that.
What is the spiritual reward? Meaning, if you look at it through the physical body and the physical world, God wants us to connect it through the physical.
So there's definitely a role for the physical. That's what we all
Why
understand.
not reward us with the physical itself? At a low level, the whole idea is to use the physical to connect to God. Use the physical to reward us as well.
You can, as in there's definitely a role for the physical, as we've seen that's where some of the brachos and kolos come. But if we take a look at what is the humanity set aside from the animal kingdom, in what way? The animals all have physical pleasures. Yeah, many of these things that we've discussed, lots of food, lots of drink, not having to work, these are all things which the animal kingdom could enjoy. There's something God breathed into us with Tselem Elokim, this sort of great soul, this great intellect. So there must be something very much different and great about humanity, which allows us to connect to God in a far more superior way. But for people who haven't developed that side, they haven't developed their spiritual dimension, they're not even able to appreciate that. And that's something which the Rambam focuses on very much. Had we just been intended to have great physical pleasure, we wouldn't have had to have this great Tzelem Elokim. It wouldn't have the ability. You wouldn't have the ability to learn Torah, to understand things on a greater level. So to say that yes, we get through. We were given these mitzvahs and averos. We can train ourselves very much to overcome our physical side, to be much better people, to not give in to our physical natures, and then suddenly, right? Well, Olam Haba, oh, fine. You can now. It's a free pass. You go and do whatever you want. You can all the things you sort of trained yourself not to give into. I train myself not to sleep in the morning. I can go to shul and not to run and eat whatever I want. Check that. Make sure it's kosher. Should train myself to be this perfect spiritual being, and suddenly, you know what? Olam Haba, okay, go and enjoy yourself. It's counterintuitive. It's yeah. So the Rambam would take exception. But so where were we? So he's now going to give a moshel of which is it's quite a hard hitting moshel, which sort of explains his view of where people go wrong and why they don't appreciate and tap into physicality. Because he's going to show that people, as you're saying, are born physical. We have a physical side which is very powerful, and we are always motivated by this physical side, unless we make a particular effort to step outside the physical and train ourselves, motivate ourselves towards the spiritual. And he's going to give a moshel which is going to introduce this idea. So now you who are learning this book, concentrate very hard on this moshel I'm going to give. So by understanding this moshel I'm now going to give, this will be a stepping stone into understanding this whole introduction I'm going to give. Simdat da'atcha. Ki na'ar koton of you etzal melamed lamda Torah. So we're now going to think of someone who's brought in, is it Kitzur Aleph, Mechina, Kitzur Aleph. He's going to start learning Torah for the first time. He's going to start learning the Aleph Bet. And he's been brought into the Melamed. So if we step back from the point of view of the Torah, what this kid is about to learn, the Aleph base and the Bereshit Bara Alakim, this is the best thing he could possibly be doing. He's getting a path into a perspective into the greatest good, the greatest MS, the spiritual connection he could get by learning Torah. Ella. Shahu Lemir Shana v'chusha Sikla. This little kid, this 5-year-old, due to his young age and his inability to understand, he's got no understanding. He can appreciate the Aleph base, Bereshit Bara Alakim. To him, it doesn't really matter very much. So this teacher's going to try and sit him there, and he's going to Aleph Beit Gimel, he's going to try and learn it, but it doesn't really mean very much to him. And he's not really going to. He doesn't see the great need to put himself out to learn, and so he doesn't understand what he's going to benefit from this shlemus, from the perfection which the word of Torah will lead him to. Therefore, how does the teacher how does the Melamed, the kids Aleph, how is he going to get the kids to learn? So the Melamed, we get the benefit of that. The Melamed does realize how great the Torah is. The Melamed does understand what the great significance, the great spiritual meaning of the letters of the Torah and the beginning of Bereshit that he's going to start teaching him. But he's got no way of imparting that. This kid is this 5-year-old. There's no way the Melamed can teach and can convey to his little kid the great spiritual significance of what he's about to teach him. Therefore, what's he going to do? So So in order to motivate his little kids to learn and to want to start learning the Aleph Beis and the Chumash, he's going to have to say, I'm going to motivate you with something else. If you learn to read and you read a pasuk of the Chumash, and I'll give you some nuts and some dates. This is what they used to figs. This is what they used to bribe them with in the old. I think instead of having the candies, they used to have nuts and dried fruit. That was considered the greatest. Right, there's a handy man's there with his dried fruit in his. I think in Hilchos Yom Tov, when they're talking about the Simchas Yom Tov, they said that the men have the meat and the wine, they're going to get new clothing, and the kids get nuts and dried fruit. That's considered the thing that kids used to strive for. It's a healthier version of what we have today. I give you a bit of the honey, but so this giving this kids we'll call it the candy nowadays. So now the kid is motivated to read and learn because he knows he reads the pasuk correctly, and he gets this candy. Loi le'etzem makriya. So what is this kid motivated by? Here he's got no interest actually in learning to read the pasuk. Yes, it's great spiritual meaning, great spiritual significance. This kid's got no interest in that at all. His interest is he's one thing in front of his mind, and that's what's it called? What did I get in school? Coconut chocolate bars we used to get. So he has no way of appreciating the significance of the Torah. He's got one thing in front of his mind, and that is, I want the chocolate bar, I want the candy. There's absolutely no doubt that for that little kid, the significance of receiving this chocolate bar is far outweighs the meaning of the Torah and the reading, being able to read the pasuk. So he thinks that this learning is some. It's just a means to the end, right? I've got to go and I've got to do this annoying thing of having to read through this pasuk and get it right and be able to pronounce the words correctly, just so I can get to what I really want, which is the chocolate bar. So through this toiling away to learn the Aleph Beis and be able to read the pasuk, then he can get what he really wants. For who? The sweetened nuts. Okay, so that's fine. We've got the 5-year-old there, and we can understand it. He's too young to be able to appreciate anything better. What happens when he gets bigger? So Yagdil gets a little bit bigger. The Yachzik Sichlo, his intellect starts growing. He starts getting more mature. Now the nut on the dried fig no longer motivates him like it did. He's 8-year-old, 9-year-old. He's now started to learn to like and appreciate something more sophisticated. So we should write an updated version of the Rambam it's a beautiful mashal, so we should update it and put it out. So now the teacher, it's in Kita Dalet, Kita Hey, now he's going to have to provide a more sophisticated bribe to get this kid to learn. So what is this teacher now going to say? Read the Mishnah, read the Navi. I'm going to buy you nice sports shoes, right? I'll get you the Nike sports shorts, whatever it is. Min alim yafim, which is nice shoes, or begadim chamudim, desired clothing. Because as kids get older, they set their sights higher. You have to bribe your kids with more and more. And again, this kid, this 10, 12-year-old, is now going to start learning the Mishnah. Lo le'etzem halimud. Once again, he's not interested in the Mishnah in its own right. Elo lo etzem malbush. He is solely motivated. He sees the sports shoes in front of his eyes. He knows he learns the Perek and Mishnah by heart, and his Rav's going to buy him the sports shoes. He's on the most Mishnayos of the class. He gets the prize. That's what he's motivated by. He doesn't value. All he's seeing the limud is as a means to a greater physical reward. Once again, for this 10, 12-year-old, the clothing is more weighty, it's more desired, it is more significant than the Torah. But the actual toughness is the fancy clothing, and the Kriya learning the Mishnah is just a means to the end. Let's move it on. Let's move it on a few years. So this kid grows, he gets bigger and bigger. So he's no longer motivated so much by the clothes. So now he's getting towards the yeshiva age. What are the 15, 16-year-olds going to be motivated by? So the Rav says to him, learn this Perek of Gemara by heart. Now it's you find this sometimes you see in the in other shuls as well. And I go to the Gra, let's get to Ben Azmanim. So they're trying to get the yeshiva guys to come and learn in the half day in Ben Azmanim. So he signs up, come and learn the half day between 9 and 12, 9 and 1 in the Gra, and you'll be paid however much money it is for learning. And it's in lishmah, someone who's sponsored the learning. But yeah, this is a similar thing. Come and learn Perek of Gemara, and I'll give you a dinar, shnei dinarim, but a kachu korah mishnadel. I'm getting hungry now.
I have to say, it's not my experience. I used to sit and listen to these 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. I'm not saying they were perfect or whatever. I could not believe their enthusiasm for what they were learning. And at the end of the day, they had their own legs. This self-selecting group, they've got the tool and they've been. And I went to the last Shabbos or the Chelek before the next Chelek, and spent it with it's a rabbinic household. But I'm listening to these kids, these different kids, and the kids coming from the neighborhood, and they're discussing it, and the kids says, I'm coming back tomorrow because I want to hear my child is going to the Rav, and I want to hear the answer. So there's something in they've caught the back somewhere in a positive way. Yeah, I get that. There are those that won't do that. But I think even by then, then we're getting into the financial reward. And if you've caught the bug anyway, the financial reward is going to happen, but you also need a partner.
Right.
If you haven't caught the bug,
That's what he's going to get to. The touch
so the financial reward is going to help.
Hear him out in the mashal. We're halfway through the mashals. We're going to get there. He's trying to convey a point about the way people look at. He's trying to show why do people focus on the physical rewards like Gan Eden, Mashiach, we discussed earlier, and they don't focus on the great spiritual rewards. And he's saying that as people go through life, with the education system doesn't necessarily guide them to focus on the spiritual rewards. And he's going through and he's saying, well, we're going to see as he goes through it, there's the little kids bribed with the nuts and the fruit, you can understand that. Then there's the clothing, then there's money. And it could be there are certain exceptions to this. Yes, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but he's saying the common thing when you keep using physical rewards to bribe someone to learn, as they go through life, they're going to keep seeing my learning is a a means to achieve the physical reward. I'm not saying everyone is, and there's no one who does. So let's see as he goes through this. We're only halfway through. This first he's trying to point out what the problem is. The remedy comes afterwards. So fine. So the dinarim it's the same thing. He's only learning in order to get the money at the end of it. Right? He gets bigger and bigger. He's now getting into adult age, kolal age. Now he realizes that these few coins where he bribed it isn't that great. The Yomer Rabbi says, Rav will say to him, is Rosh Kola will say to him, Lamad, learn, Kadesh Rav V'dayan V'chabducha B'nei Adam. So they say, I think that the Muslim Sfarim say that as people get older, the kavod becomes the greatest bribe in the physical world. People at a younger age, they want the physical things, different titles that come along, but then kavod becomes the greatest time of it. So as this person gets older now, so the Rambam says to him, and again, I've heard quite a lot of people talking this way. They're learning. Well, I can get this job. I can get that job. I can get this shtella. I can get this. I can be a rabbi of a shul with this many people, or a kol with that many people. It's what position can I get? How people regard me. And again, obviously, not everyone is like this. There are very pure, holy people who are motivated, but the system in general is pushing people. Go and learn, because as a result, you can be a rav in this area. You can be a dayan, and people stand up when you come in the room. Obviously, you'll be singing the songs. You'll be on the Rebbe cards, and you see sometimes when people have been in a certain amount of time, in the end, they realize they're not going to get that stage. Suddenly, there's a big disillusionment. Again, for the people who are really doing it for the right reason, they carry on learning like they were before, because that was never the tachlis. They're learning because they wanted to learn. For the people who are doing it for the kavod and they realize at a certain stage that they're going to miss out on that, suddenly there's a big sort of disillusionment and they start feeling very. But again, the point is, the Torah learning for this person is just the reward has just become more and more sophisticated. It's moved from food to clothes to money to kavod, and kavod is just a means. So Torah learning is just a means to be able to achieve the kavod. Right. You can be a Rosh Kollel. People stand up in front of you. People will talk about you. All of this is despicable. It's harsh words. What it's really saying is that we are born as physical beings. We have the Tzelem Elokim aspect to us, but unless we make a specific effort at a certain time in our life, or we're taught by our teachers, and then we make that effort to shift off that cycle of being bribed and seeing Torah learning and Avodas Hashem just as a means for some kind of physical reward and achieve something you're being bribed for, you can just keep going through your whole life being that little kid in school with being bribed for the chocolate. And yet, this 5-year-old, 6-year-old, you do have to give him that bribe because his mind isn't sophisticated enough to be able to appreciate what Torah is. But at some point, as the kid grows up, 12, 15, 18, people reach maturity at different ages. At some point, this kid has got to stop and realize, what am I doing? The Torah is actually a tachlis in its own right. The beauty, the emes of the Torah, the relationship with Hashem, as we're going to see, that is the tachlis. And yes, as you said, parnasa, yes, going to get parnasa as well. There's a role for being mechaber talmid chachamim. All of this has a place, but it's not the tachlis. And what the Rambam is trying to point out with his mashal is that if you carry on blindly through your life, just looking for the more sophisticated form of bribe, you're only going to be serving Hashem lo lishmah.
I also learned that it's for sure that you should learn Torah lishmah and not for like any ulterior motive. But there's a shkla, I'm not sure where it comes from, but the original form. So there's a shkla that says that it's better for someone to learn Torah lo lishmah than well, because in the end,
4 lines, coming in 4 lines. Right, it's good to learn lo lishma because you need that in order to get to the shema. But it doesn't mean lo lishma is good in its own right. It's only because, as we'll discuss it outside, but we'll get to it inside. What he's going to say is that um, the level of the Shema is something which is very hard. It's very to be able to appreciate the Torah and spirituality and the inherent goodness of Torah and mitzvot is something which is very hard. And in order to be able to get to that level, you first have to have studied Torah and perform mitzvot, and you have to have kept Shabbat. And unless you've actually done it, you're not going to appreciate the goodness of it.
Can you explain to me when you say goodness, can you define what you mean? Goodness of the world or the inherent goodness? Meaning the moral rightness of it. What do you mean by that?
So what he means of it is the actual, the ultimate goodness he's going to say is the connection to Hashem that it brings.
And this is to do it in order to connect to God.
Right. I mean, if we should really take the final halachas in Hilchos Teshuvah, he sort of sets out. Hilchos Teshuvah is a fascinating set because we always think, what is Teshuvah? We always think about it as if I've done something wrong, I've got to put it right, and that's it. That's the first 2 or 3 chapters of Hilchos Teshuvah. There are 10 chapters. Actual Teshuvah for the Rambam is looking at the best, I call it macro Teshuvah, building up what sort of person I should be and what are my ultimate goals in life. And the ultimate goal is to serve God out of love. And to do that emet because it's emet.
And in lishmah, is it a spectrum or is it like?
Yeah, you it's a build up. Everything for the Rambam is a spectrum. It's a gradual build up. You start off as a kid, everything's low lishmah because that's what we are. But the more you learn and the more you the first time you keep Shabbos, the first time you open a Gemara, it's a struggle. But the more you study and learn, you say Tehillim, you daven, gradually you're supposed to be, and if you do it for the right reasons, you are connecting. And that connection makes you appreciate, whether it's an intellectual thing or a spiritual thing or a combination of all these different points, suddenly you're connecting and suddenly you're appreciating the MS of what you're doing. And you're starting to realize, yes, there's something more to it. And the more and more you do it, the motive of that bit of bribery for turning up to that Ben Azman Kollel, that's not going to push you anymore. You do it even without the money. Yes, it's good for people to have the panasa as well, but that's not the motivating factor. As you're saying, that is that you need to have the lot of Shema in order to perform the mitzvahs and to learn Torah to begin with, to get on the cycle, and then once you're doing it, you can start moving towards the lishmah. That's what it means by mitzvah shalom lishmah bar lishmah. By doing the mitzvah and the Torah lo lishma, you are able to then start appreciating the greatness and train yourself towards the Shema. There is, however, as I think the Tosfos said this also on that Gemara, that the type of lo lishma will never lead you to the Shema, and that is if you're doing it for a negative reason. For doing it for a bit of bribery, doing it for the kid who's being given the sweets, the chocolates, the guy who's getting the kollel check, that is not a negative thing. It's just lo lishma. But if you're doing Torah dafka because you want to be able to put people down, or you want to be able to know things so you can insult people, if you're doing it for negative reasons, you've got bad midot, then I think the Tosfos, I think the Ramchal is also the Torah actually ends up strengthening your bad midot, and that actually leads you. That sort of lo lishma will never lead you to the Shema. There's lo lishma which is a neutral, which is neither good nor bad, like the monetary bribe, but the lo lishma which is maybe it's the competitive aspect, wanting to show you're better than other people. That's what lo lishma will never lead you to. But yeah, let's just read this bit inside, and we will leave it for.
That means basically he's giving what I wanted to in a perspective on maybe lishma. I mean, you first do it, even though you might not do it, understand properly how to do it, but you start doing it, start learning to have. Just by doing it, and then later, Nisha, you'll come to understanding it properly and appreciating it maybe.
Right, I think there is that sort of aspect. I mean, in Kiruv organizations, there are different ways of doing it, but many people involved in Kiruv say just get people involved, get them along to a Shabbos thing, get them Chabad with the tefillin. Everyone's got their own sort of things they do, but get them involved, get them doing something. And once someone's doing something, there's a connection there, and then there's a connection you can start strengthening, and that can bring them into the fold more, and they can start appreciating what it is they're doing. But until that actually started, all the time it's sort of external. Maybe people sit there and they start working proofs for this and proofs for that, and there's sort of the external philosophical side of it. That doesn't really bring people in. You got to be doing something active. You got to be doing some sort of mitzvah, some sort of. It could be Talmud. It could be an intellectual part of it. It could be Talmud Torah. But if you'd be doing something to get you involved, and that can make you feel the connection, and that's sort of lo lishma. is because you're not going to be appreciating the full aspect. That can bring you towards doing things lishmah eventually. So let's read the through inside, then we'll leave it for next week. Call them a gunner. There we go. That's a good place to leave it. Nafet ha'ikah tochel. It says it. Oh no, nitzaref lemiyat seichel adam. Shiasim tafes ha'chachma dava achar v'lasi chachma. So as we said, the human nature is we're not created as malachim. We're not fully spiritual beings that can just straight away be motivated to do what's right because it's right. Second, so all of these sorts of limud which are for a something other than Torah in its own right, the Chachamim call this lo lishmah. Koloma sheyasa mitzvahs yimad yiftatel b'Torah lo lo tadavar ba'atzmai, not for the sake of doing the mitzvah in its own right, ela b'shkol davar acher. This is getting into a new thing of what's in the lishmah, lo lishmah. We'll leave this for next week. It's but we'll pick up the lishmah, lo lishmah, and mitoch lo lishmah, lo lishmah. We'll pick that up for next week.